Hello everyone, Jessica Morales joining you now. I have the pleasure of being joined by Mr. Larry Nichols, who's the Chairman Emeritus of Devon Energy, but also our inaugural Shale Visionary Award winner. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Nichols.
Glad to be here, it's my pleasure.
Well, congratulations first of all. We are really happy to be able to have you here. Tell us a little bit about what this award means to you.
Well, it means a lot to me in Devon because, you know, when you do something like pioneering technology work, it's always nice to be recognized. Particularly when it's hard, as all efforts are when you first start. It's hard at the beginning, and then it catches on and everyone embraces it.
And this is a Visionary Award, which you no doubt, played that part, such that huge role. Tell us, bring us back to the beginning, tell us the story of Devon in the early 2000s and what brought you to where they are now.
Yeah, my father and I actually started the business in 1971 when we bought an interest in 5 wells. We were worth virtually nothing and gradually built it up to when we went public in 1988. At that time we were using coal bed methane technology in the San Juan Basin, which was the new and exciting thing at the time that really propelled us then. We were an exciting $75 million market cap when we started and have grown a bit since then. And then we've moved on to other acquisitions, including the hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling.
And how does it feel to be able to to see where Devon has grown to where it is now, and knowing that hard work that you and your father put into it?
It's exciting. You never really think about it at the time. I mean, at the time, each year your vision is not to get to a certain level. It's just to get, to take the assets you have, the people you have, and what can we build? Where can we grow from here?
Tell me when you knew it was time for Devon to come home onshore the U.S. You actually told our colleague Nisa Darmon in her book, The American Shales, you could see the unconventional resource potential from your office window. Tell us what potential you saw.
Yeah, as we were doing acquisitions, we were mainly looking at assets that people had in North America that they were overlooking. A lot of people were excited about international, and they were sitting on these wonderful assets in the Permian Basin and Oklahoma, scattered around the country, doing nothing with them, just using them as cash cows and putting all their capital and all of their smart people on international and Gulf of Mexico operations. And so we would buy these companies, and we ended up with this fairly diverse portfolio of international assets. And really thought that would be our future. That when we'd done everything that we or anyone else had found to do in North American onshore, that we would migrate over to this international asset group that we were playing, and Gulf of Mexico assets that we were building up. And then as as the shale play really started developing, and the one that really drove it home the most for me was we were comparing our play in western Oklahoma, our Cana play, and looking at the capital there and the capital we were spending in an exciting deep water Gulf of Mexico play, the Jack discovery, which was a big deal at the time, made its way to the front page of the Wall Street Journal. But when you compared the risk portfolio of those, the time delay between you could get a well, the discovery, and when you could get it on stream, it made no sense at all. Wow. We could spend the same capital with dramatic less risk, getting the same reserves, not on the edge of technology, and stopping on a dime if you wanted to, because it only took a couple weeks to drill a well. And you compare that up and down the line with the time delays in the work of the Gulf of Mexico, it made no sense at all. So we said there is more potential than we can ever hope to exploit in North American onshore, and we decided to sell out not only the Gulf of Mexico, but everything internationally.
And a little bit more about that, you also mentioned that wells could be drilled and produced less than 30 days versus deep water Gulf of Mexico wells. You mentioned that taking 10 years to begin cash flow. How much did that play into the success of the company?
Well, it was successful at the time. It gave us a lot of reserves, and we sold those reserves for a lot of money. But we were delighted, particularly in the Gulf of Mexico. We sold almost all of our Gulf properties in the deep water for almost $3 billion about a month before the Macondo accident happened, which created a pallor over the whole Gulf of Mexico for quite a while. So we were delighted to exit those areas and get back where we're experts, where we can compete with anybody.
And you were also one of the early adopters of using big data in the industry. What did you see that led you to believe that was the way to go?
Well, you know, when you think that the cell phone is only 10 years old, which is phenomenal, it's not that long, and you look at the data and the ability that computers have to massage data, in the last 10 or 15 years, it's phenomenal. And you're sitting on this treasure trove of data that we have, but there's too much of it for the human brain to digest and to communicate to all the other experts in the company. And getting all that data together and using computers to massage that data, look for things that you might not even be able to see because it's just so overwhelming. It's a great a great use of the technology.
Absolutely, and there's a suggestion among industry observers that E&Ps that have invested in and used big data in their resource play development will differentiate the ultimate winners. Onshore, the U.S., do you agree actually with that?
Yes. I mean, it is no different. If in the 2005 and 6, there were some producers who said, I'm just going to drill vertical wells. I don't want to drill horizontal wells in this complicated hydraulic fracturing. I'm just going to drill conventional vertical wells. They have been left behind. You know, they have been bludgeoned into submission sooner or later. The same thing will happen with big data, is that the companies that can use that will have a competitive advantage.
And tell me also, are you surprised at all at how much hydraulic fracturing has become a centerpiece of the U.S. oil and gas industry and energy security?
A little bit. You know, you never know what technology is going to have length and security. Of course, hydraulic fracturing has the notoriety because the environmentalists have attacked it. It's the horizontal drilling that is equally important, if not more important. It's the combination of those two that really are the powerhouse. One without the other is interesting, but not revolutionary.
How can the United States navigate its new role as a swing oil producer in the global marketplace, do you think?
We have just begun to discover how to use that. I mean, when you think that the exports of oil just a couple of months ago hit a record high in United States history. Natural gas just beginning. Just think of the change in geopolitics as we can export natural gas to the Eastern European countries to lessen their dependence on Russian gas. And that's a game changer in terms of politics.
And tell me, we want to talk a little bit more about the contributions and everything you have brought to the industry. You were also the chair of API in your career. How has that role of independence in oil and gas changed or grown since you first got into the business? How have you seen that change?
Well, in the early 70s, the oil and gas industry was fairly simple. There were the major companies that were, and we had, I've forgotten, 13, 15 integrated oil and gas companies that were U.S. based, and then mom and pops. And very few, virtually nobody in between. You were one or the other. Yeah. And over time, large independent companies like Devon and a host of others have emerged in the middle that have played a huge role. At one time, you can argue that the majors were thinking that everything in the U.S. has been discovered, and if by chance one of these mom and pops discovers something that is interesting, they will have to come to us because only we have the expertise and the financial resources to develop it. Now you have Devon and all our peer companies that have all the expertise and all of the manpower and technology to develop it just as well as the majors do. So rather than sort of having a barbell industry with people at either end, there's a whole gradation in size.
And if you will, back to Devon, if you'd like to share your thoughts, Northeast Blanco unit assets in San Juan Basin ended up with BP. 30 years later, Devon grew from just grew millions, we know. What do you think of that overall after all these years?
Well, you know, oil and gas fields do have a limit, a life. They do get resurrected, as we see by each wave of evolution. But it's time to move on to your next exciting, your new children, if you will.
Yeah, and speaking about that, is there anything else that you would like viewers to know about Devon and moving forward and just overall about the industry?
I think because of this new technology, the excitement that exists within Devon and within the industry toward U.S. onshore production has never been higher. It has never been higher. In the 70s and 80s, as I said earlier, people were more interested in international. Why go to those countries where there's risk, where there's logistic problems, when you have all of these resources here? it's an exciting time to be in the oil and gas business in the United States.
Exciting time to be at home.
It is.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols.
Thank
Again,
you.
we appreciate your time and congratulations on this much-deserved award.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And for more on interviews and stories like Mr. Nichols, you can visit oilandgasinvestor.com.
To stay up to date on the most recent Hart Energy videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking here.